It was one of those Asheville mornings that felt like the world was just waking up slower than usual. Soft sunlight spreading across the Blue Ridge foothills, coffee steam mingling with mountain mist, and a chorus of robins rehearsing their spring soundtrack. The kind of day where the air carried both promise and pollen, where everyone's car looked like it had been dusted by lemon powder. Downtown Asheville was already buzzing. Joggers in reflective vests ran past craft coffee shops, retirees walked poodles with monogrammed leashes, and the smell of fresh cinnamon rolls from the corner bakery drifted across the cobblestone sidewalks like a bribe to every diet plan in town. Ethan Cole didn't have time for any of it. He was late. He wasn't the type to be late, ever. A self-proclaimed master of punctuality, Ethan believed clocks were like small gods. You didn't question them, you just obeyed. His mother used to joke that he came out of the womb 3 minutes early and has been trying to make up for it ever since. But today, the universe had other plans. His apartment, a one-bedroom unit on the 5th floor of the Red Elm Residences, a modernized old brick building that used to be a textile factory, had already tested his patience. The coffee machine sputtered and made something that tasted like wet cardboard, his iron refused to heat up possibly out of protest, and his phone charger had vanished into thin air. Then came the cherry on top, the elevator. The old brass doors sighed open just as Ethan stepped inside, briefcase in hand, earphones in, and Bluetooth keyboard peeking out of his bag, his arsenal for another day of troubleshooting the modern world. The elevator shuddered slightly as it closed, a sound that said, "I'm trying, man." It began its descent, humming like a jazz band that had lost rhythm. Then, right between the 4th and 3rd floors, it stopped. Hard stop. No motion, no sound. Just a quiet groan followed by silence. Ethan blinked, then blinked again, as if double-clicking reality might help. He pressed the button for the lobby. Nothing. Pressed, door open. Nothing. He tried, door close, out of pure irony. Still nothing. And then, in the most reluctant voice imaginable, he muttered, "Of course." He sighed and tapped the emergency button. The intercom crackled to life with the energy of an elderly tortoise waking from hibernation. "Maintenance," said a voice that sounded way too cheerful for 8:12 a.m. "Hey, yeah," Ethan replied. "Elevator's stuck. Between 3rd and 4th, I think." "Ooh, that's number 2 again," said the voice. "Yeah, she's been moody since Tuesday. You're in the one with the little fan on top, right?" Ethan looked up. "Yeah, that's the one." "All right, sit tight, buddy. We'll get you out soon." "How soon's soon?" The line went quiet for a beat too long. "Soonish." Click. "Soonish," Ethan repeated to no one, looking at his watch as if it could rescue him. It was 8:14. His meeting started at 9. He inhaled slowly, because that's what YouTube meditation videos told him to do when frustrated, but exhaled with a grunt that could curdle milk. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. Ethan had gone through the 5 stages of elevator grief. Denial, this can't be happening. Anger, why is this happening? Bargaining, please let this be over by 9. Depression, this is my tomb. And acceptance, fine, I live here now. By the time the 40-minute mark hit, he was sitting cross-legged on the elevator floor, scrolling through memes about bad luck. His phone signal flickered between 1 bar and none, giving him just enough connection to receive a single message from his coworker, "Where are you?" "Boss is already in." He typed back, "Stuck. Elevator, send snacks." The message didn't send. An hour later, Ethan had made peace with his new habitat. He had water, thank you, reusable bottle, a protein bar, and enough podcasts downloaded to last a minor apocalypse. He even started narrating his own situation, mostly to keep himself sane. "So here I am," he said out loud, half grinning. "Trapped between floors in Asheville, dressed like a budget accountant, realizing that patience isn't my strong suit. Maybe this is the universe's way of saying, slow down, man." Literally. And just as he said that, the elevator made a tiny clunk, not enough to move, just enough to make him pause. "Oh good," he muttered. "It heard me." That's when the intercom crackled again. "Hey, still working on it. Got our guy on the way." Ethan smirked. "Your guy, not multiple guys. One guy for all of human progress." "Yep. His name's Rusty." Ethan blinked. "Of course it is." About 90 minutes in, a soft voice echoed from above. "Hey, you okay down there?" Ethan looked up through the vent. A woman's face appeared, faintly visible through the grate. She had curly red hair and an easy smile. "Define, okay," Ethan called up. "Well," she said, "you're not screaming, so that's promising." Ethan laughed. "Yeah, I'm keeping it classy." "You work here?" I live on the 4th floor, she said. Name's Hannah. Ethan, he replied. Nice to meet you in my panic box. She grinned. I brought you a donut. I was gonna lower it through the crack, but I think physics disagreed. That was the first time Ethan genuinely smiled since this ordeal started. For the next 20 minutes, they talked through the door, about work, about Asheville's unpredictable weather, about how people never seem to slow down long enough to actually look around. I think everyone's just racing to nowhere, Hannah said. It's weird. We chase speed, but then we say we miss peace. Ethan nodded to himself. Yeah, guess that's why I'm here. My own unplanned meditation retreat. By noon, Rusty arrived. If you had to imagine a man named Rusty, you'd be correct. Denim overalls, a mustache that deserved its own zip code, and a smile that looked permanently amused by existence. Howdy there, bud, Rusty yelled through the door. You holding up? Yeah, Ethan replied. Just bonding with my inner peace. Rusty laughed. Well, hang tight. I'll get you moving again soon as I find the right wrench. Or maybe it's a socket. Or both. It took another 40 minutes, during which Ethan discovered that elevators are excellent mirrors for self-reflection, both literally and metaphorically. He started thinking about how often he rushed through life, from coffee to commute, from one deadline to the next, like he was trying to win a race no one else knew existed. By the time Rusty finally pried the door open and offered his calloused hand, Ethan looked almost calm. Freedom, Rusty announced, pulling him out with theatrical flair. Never thought fresh air would taste this dramatic, Ethan said, breathing deeply. Elevators like life, son, Rusty said with a wink. Sometimes it just gets stuck till you stop pushing buttons. Ethan looked down the hallway and saw Hannah still waiting, holding 2 iced coffees. Thought you might need a caffeine rebirth, she said, handing him one. He grinned. You're a hero. She smiled. No, just a neighbor who knows patience is easier with sugar. He laughed, feeling that strange, light sensation of gratitude, the kind that hits harder than coffee. Maybe getting stuck wasn't a setback. Maybe it was a reset. As Ethan walked out into the Asheville afternoon, the air felt different, same pollen, same heat, but new clarity. He looked up at the bright sky, took another sip, and thought, maybe next time the world stops, I'll just breathe instead of panic. He smiled, the slow, steady kind that sticks around. By the time the following morning arrived, Asheville was already humming again, sunshine dripping through open cafe doors, laughter echoing off mural-painted brick walls, and that distinctive mountain breeze carrying both wildflower pollen and barbecue smoke. It was one of those southern spring days that felt like nature had brewed extra optimism into the air, even if half the population was sneezing because of it. Ethan Cole stepped outside with a travel mug in one hand and his phone in the other, checking his schedule like it was a crystal ball for chaos. Yesterday's elevator fiasco had gone mildly viral in the local Facebook group, thanks to someone filming Rusty's heroic rescue. The video caption read, "Man learns patience, gains wisdom, possibly caffeine addiction." He had 142 new notifications. Most were comments like, "Bless him," and, "This is so Asheville." One said, "Why he looked like he's about to cry over an iced coffee though." He did, in fact, look like that. He smirked. 15 minutes of fame, he muttered. Mine just came with a side of claustrophobia. He wasn't late today, intentionally. He'd woken up early, brewed an actually decent cup of coffee, and even took time to water his sad-looking indoor plant. The elevator still worked this morning, but he chose the stairs anyway. Not out of trauma, though maybe a little, but because something about taking slow steps felt right. The stairs creaked pleasantly as he descended, sunlight slicing through the old factory-style windows and dust motes floating like glitter in the air. He smiled faintly, realizing it had been years since he'd noticed how pretty morning light could be. He exited the Red Elm Residences and headed toward the Maple Bean Cafe, a cozy spot with exposed beams, mismatched mugs, and the friendliest barista this side of the Blue Ridge Parkway. Inside, the smell of espresso mixed with cinnamon and something that felt like relief. "Elevator guy," shouted Tony Ramirez, the UPS driver who was now clearly enjoying his new nickname for Ethan. "Morning to you too, Tony," Ethan said, sliding into line. Tony leaned on the counter, smirking. "Heard you ascended to enlightenment while stuck yesterday." "More like descended into mild insanity," Ethan replied. Tony chuckled. "Same thing these days, brother." The barista, Maggie, handed Ethan a large coffee without asking for his order. She grinned, "It's on the house. Consider it a reward for surviving your self-help moment." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You watched the video?" Everyone watched the video, she said, laughing. Even my grandma texted me like, that man looked reflective. He laughed too, shaking his head. Guess patience really pays, in caffeine. Outside, the day stretched into an easy rhythm, the kind of small town flow where everyone waves, dogs lead the way, and time politely slows its roll. Ethan walked to work, passing antique stores, art galleries, and a local music shop that still sold vinyl records. It felt like walking through a Norman Rockwell painting, if Norman had painted people in yoga pants holding oat milk lattes. He arrived at the IT office, a renovated building that used to be a mechanic's garage. The front desk receptionist, a teenager named Janelle who had too much energy for 9 a.m., greeted him with mock applause. Our elevator guru returns, she announced. Ethan grinned. Yep, here to enlighten your Wi-Fi. You're trending, by the way, she said. Hashtag. He laughed, half in disbelief, half in mild horror. Outside, the day stretched into an easy rhythm, the kind of small town flow where everyone waves, dogs lead the way, and time politely slows its roll. Ethan walked to work, passing antique stores, art galleries, and a local music shop that still sold vinyl records. It felt like walking through a Norman Rockwell painting, if Norman had painted people in yoga pants holding oat milk lattes. He arrived at the IT office, a renovated building that used to be a mechanic's garage. The front desk receptionist, a teenager named Janelle who had too much energy for 9 a.m., greeted him with mock applause. Our elevator guru returns, she announced. Ethan grinned. Yep, here to enlighten your Wi-Fi. You're trending, by the way, she said. Hashtag elevator zen. He laughed, half in disbelief, half in mild horror. The day moved along normally, a rare, peaceful kind of normal. No emergencies, no frozen servers, not even a printer jam, a small miracle. During lunch, he ate on the office balcony overlooking downtown Asheville. Below him, he could see the Red Elm building, and right there, on the fourth-floor balcony, stood Hannah. She waved. He smiled and waved back, holding up his sandwich like a salute. It was a simple moment, but it made him chuckle. Of all the weird ways to meet someone, this one at least came with free life lessons. Later that week, the Red Elm Residence's building manager decided to host a community mixer, mostly to convince residents the elevator was now safe, but also because people seemed oddly united by last week's chaos. Flyers appeared in the lobby, snacks, music, and one repaired elevator. Ethan showed up in jeans, a navy button-down, and his best effort at casual optimism. Hannah was already there, wearing a floral blouse and holding 2 sodas. Still trusting the elevator, she teased. Barely, he said, but I brought my emotional support wrench. She laughed. That's progress. As music drifted through the lobby and neighbors mingled, Ethan noticed how everyone seemed lighter. Maybe patience wasn't contagious, but calm energy sure was. Rusty showed up too, of course, with his iconic mustache and toolbox, now repurposed as a serving tray for deviled eggs. Figured I'd bring something stable to the party, he announced, drawing laughter from the crowd. As people swapped stories, Ethan found himself genuinely enjoying small talk, something he used to treat like an Olympic sport he didn't sign up for. Hannah mentioned she worked remotely as a children's illustrator, often pulling all-nighters with watercolor and coffee. Patience must come easy for you, he said. She snorted. Ha, you should see me waiting for paint to dry. I scream inside. He smiled. Maybe patience isn't peace. Maybe it's just learning how not to scream out loud. She looked at him thoughtfully. That's kind of deep for a guy who got famous by sitting still. The event wrapped up with applause for Rusty, who bowed dramatically, and a raffle for Best Neighbor Spirit, which somehow went to Ethan. He didn't even know he'd been nominated. Hannah cheered the loudest. Speech. Someone shouted. Ethan raised his soda like a microphone. Thanks for not laughing when I panicked yesterday. And for proving that sometimes being stuck makes you notice who's right outside the door. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Rusty shouted, we should get this man his own podcast. That night, Ethan took the elevator home. Just him, the soft hum of machinery, and his reflection in the brass door. He pressed 5, and instead of staring at the numbers, he looked at his own calm, bemused face. Halfway up, the elevator paused for a second, just long enough to make him inhale sharply. Then it continued. Smooth. Effortless. He smiled, shaking his head. Nice try, universe. Not falling for that again. The days that followed moved differently. Not slower, just more intentional. Ethan noticed things, the way people's moods shifted with the weather, how coffee shop conversations had rhythms like jazz, how even the hum of traffic had its own calm pulse. He started volunteering at the community tech center on weekends, helping older residents learn how to use email or order groceries online. It wasn't glamorous, but it made people laugh, especially when he explained Wi-Fi as invisible kindness that connects us all. He also started seeing Hannah more often, coffee walks, art fairs, grocery store coincidences that maybe weren't coincidences anymore. One evening, as golden hour light painted Asheville pink and orange, they sat on a bench outside the Red Elm building. "Do you ever think we're all kind of elevators?" she asked. Ethan laughed. "That's deep. Go on." "Well, sometimes we get stuck. But when someone helps, or when we just wait it out, we still end up moving again. Maybe slower, but still up." He nodded. "You should have been the one giving that speech." She smiled. "Nah, you had better lighting." Weeks turned into months. The elevator never broke again, though Ethan swore it sighed dramatically every time he stepped in, like it remembered the shared trauma. He'd chuckle every time. And one morning, on his way out, he noticed a new sign taped inside the elevator: "Stuck. Take a breath. It's temporary." At the bottom, someone had drawn a smiley face wearing a mustache. Rusty's handiwork, obviously. Ethan laughed out loud, shaking his head. Man's a philosopher. One Friday afternoon, a thunderstorm rolled in, Asheville style, loud, dramatic, full of personality. Ethan watched rain streak down his office window, people darting for cover below. He thought about how just a few months ago, that kind of pause, the world literally stopping, would have irritated him. Now it felt almost poetic. He opened his phone and posted, "Sometimes life traps you in small spaces so you can grow in big ways. #patience power #slow wins." Within an hour, it had more likes than his last 10 posts combined. That weekend, he hosted a small rooftop cookout for the building. Rusty, Hannah, Tony, Maggie, and half the neighbors came. The air smelled like grilled corn and laughter. Kids ran around with sparklers. Someone played acoustic guitar. It felt like summer starting early. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, Rusty clinked his soda can against Ethan's. "See, son, told your elevators are just lessons with buttons." Ethan laughed. "You might have missed your calling as a poet." "Nah," Rusty said, "I like fixin' things. Even the humankind, sometimes." Later, as everyone left and the rooftop quieted down, Ethan sat alone for a moment, legs crossed, a gentle breeze rustling through the ivy planters. The city lights below twinkled like patient stars. He thought about that first moment the elevator stopped, the panic, the frustration, the irony. And then he thought about where it led: new friends, new calm, new purpose. Patience, he realized, wasn't just waiting. It was learning how to exist between what's broken and what's fixed, without losing your humor in the middle. As if on cue, his phone buzzed with a text from Hannah: "Elevator's acting weird again." He grinned. "Be right there with Rusty's number and my emotional support wrench." She replied, "Bring snacks too." He laughed into the warm night air. The next morning's sunrise spilled gold over Asheville's rooftops, the kind of light that made everything look hopeful, even cracked sidewalks and crooked mailboxes. Ethan stepped outside, stretching, coffee in hand, face tilted toward the sun. The world still moved fast. Traffic honked, phones buzzed, and headlines screamed. But inside him, things were slower, steadier. The elevator hadn't just taught him patience. It had reminded him that being still doesn't mean being stuck. He walked toward the street where Hannah was waiting, waving from a distance. For once, he didn't hurry. He just walked, slow, steady, content. Because now he knew, sometimes the only way up is to pause halfway and breathe. Funny thing about patience, we think it's about waiting for something to happen. But it's really about what happens to us while we wait. Maybe we're all just elevators, stopping, starting, sometimes stuck between floors. But if we keep breathing, laughing, trusting the process, we still end up higher than where we started. And sometimes, we find company on the way up. Fade out on sunlight flickering across the brass doors, gentle hum, soft music, and the faint echo of laughter.
Like and subscribe if you want to be happy and motivate.